All right, me and Hal are back to chop it up. Thanks again to Dan Moore for that interview. Really insightful. I know it got a little technical there with all the municipal bonds and stuff, but it was good to learn. It was really good to learn him to hear from him kind of break that down. I know it kind of got in the weeds there, but that was good explanation. Like, what did you take away from that? Like, I don't know. I still feel like fans are waking up, or I don't know. There's like a different awareness, you know?
Yeah, and I think, I think it's going to be government by government. So, you see that partly, I think, in Illinois, where it seems like the mayor of Chicago is really excited about giving tons of money away to the
Yeah.
Bears and the White Sox. And the governor is like,
Yeah. Wasn't there
you
a
sure
quote
about
from some?
that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
sure
You
about
sure
that?
about that? Wasn't there a quote that came out from somebody's like, "Oh, this is basically essentially it's a free stadium." Like, didn't somebody? I forget who said it, but it was like I think it was a politician who said it. It was like, "Oh, this is a free stadium, guys," and then people were like, "No, it's not. It's like two
No,
billion
it's not.
dollars of our money. What are you talking about?"
No,
You
it's
know?
not. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
makes no
Well, they
sense.
always say that, right? So they all like the grift is they bring in a consultant. The consultant says this is going to create so much economic opportunity that
Jeremy Aguero.
the your yeah your coffers are going to be bursting with
Yeah,
money, and you'll use a fraction of that to pay back these bonds. Um,
it
yeah,
doesn't
and
really
so
work
I
out
think
that
people
way,
are
right?
pushing back. We
Yeah.
saw a pushback. We saw a pushback with the voters in Missouri with
Yeah.
the Royals and Chiefs. Although then you see the Kansas legislature is ready to bend backwards to grab both of them. Which, if you're a Missouri taxpayer, you're just like, great, I get to keep the team. It's I just have to drive to Kansas. Fine,
Yeah.
I get to keep the team. I don't have to pay for it. But you saw that in Virginia recently with the Wizards and the Capitals. They were like all set to move to Virginia, and Democratic people in the legislature, the governor wanted it. People in the legislature said, "Nah, we're not going to do this," and they killed that bill. And now maybe DC is going to end up paying them a bunch of money to stay. So, I mean, I think that
Yeah.
there's always another sucker. Teams are always finding another sucker, but it definitely seems like the message has gotten through to some committed public servants.
Yeah.
And I think it depends on the place. In my mind, it's the these places that call themselves really business friendly. In a lot of ways, they are really business friendly, but in a lot of ways, they're just billionaire friendly. So,
Yeah.
um,
No regulations.
it's good to be business friendly. It's bad to be billionaire friendly. So,
Well, I think also like eventually, so like the White Sox, I guess their owner Reinsdorf, he's the rumblings just one I've seen on the periphery area. I'm not close to that situation. It's just that they're trying to move to Nashville, right? Like that's like their move, or that's like their Vegas or whatever, right? That's what they're threatening with, right?
I
So
think so, and partly that partly makes me think that expansion in Major League Baseball may never happen because there's always going to be a team that tells the MLB front office, "Well, you can't take Nashville because
because we
I
can
might
get it.
want to move there."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And also like I think don't you think they're eventually going to run out of cities? Like you can't keep doing this forever. I mean, Vegas is already 40th TV market, right? Like that's already kind of scraping, I feel like, like is Portland or Nashville, like Salt Lake City, like these cities, but eventually, what are you gonna go to Billings, Montana? Like where do you
Well,
like where does it stop, Like
well, the difference between city number one, which is like New York, and city number five, which might be Philadelphia or something,
yeah.
is really big, right? Like New York is three or four times as big as Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But the difference between 40 and 45 is like kind of a rounding error. So,
Yeah.
when you say, oh, Las Vegas is really far down there, yeah, but they're not that much different than Milwaukee, so yeah, it's not that much different
Yeah.
than Portland. And I think especially with the changes in population, um,
Yeah. People are moving.
where
Yeah.
I think like in fact, a lot of places that have refused to build or have been in the Rust Belt, you know? You places like, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and Milwaukee, and maybe they wouldn't be first in line to get a stadium now,
Yeah.
or a team now. And places like Oakland in the Bay Area, where, business is booming, but government refuses to allow new housing, so populations are stagnant. you know there are new places where people are moving to, and that's, in the South generally, your San Antonios, your Austins, your Nashvilles,
Even
your
Sacramento, right? I
Charlottes.
mean, we're seeing it with Sacramento, right? I
Yeah,
think yeah, people are
Sacramento.
going from the Bay Area up to Sacramento,
Right,
right? Like,
Sacramento's been
yeah,
willing to build, and
yeah,
and that's why Sacramento's on the table for a team. I think they'll I don't know if Sacramento will be down to pay for a new stadium. They were to help pay a lot for the Kings Stadium.
yeah.
So, we'll see. I think I talked to a Kings, or a Raiders and Kings fan, a couple months ago. And I'd heard, I was actually in Montana, and this guy's like, "Oh, I'm also from California," and I was like, "Oh, where's Sacramento?" So I started talking about sports, and he says, "Oh, well, I'm a Raiders fan, but now I go to the Las Vegas, and it's fine." And I say, "Oh, it's," and he said, "Well, Sacramento's smart. We used public money to build that basketball stadium, and it's completely revitalized the city." And in my mind, I'm like, well, I think the fact that you built a ton of new housing, and people got priced out of the Bay Area, all was this long sort of a situation where a ton of people just moved to Sacramento. I don't think it was because the Kings built a stadium there,
Yeah.
but that's the story, I think, or a lot of people tell themselves that's the story in Sacramento. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Sacramento, if Vivek goes to Sacramento Council and says, build a stadium, or, East Sacramento wants to get on the map and they build a stadium there. So,
Yeah.
uh, I'll say this, I know that I think that we have two sort of different viewpoints about this, but I would view long term, if the A's end up getting sold and stay in Sacramento, I would view that as, a victory for A's fans. Not a full victory,
Yeah.
maybe a bitter victory, but A's fans are making it extremely hard for the A's to do business in Las Vegas. They've made John Fisher look like the fucking tool that he is, and that can't, like, the
Yeah.
all the bad publicity can't be helping him find investors. It also can't be, all that $200,000 that we invested with schools over stadiums. That lawsuit, not the lawsuit over the referendum, but the other lawsuit that they have trying to overturn it. That
Mhm.
has to be weighing on some investors' minds, like, who are serious, thinking, "Am I going to give a bunch of money to John Fisher right now, knowing that, oh, that public money might disappear because of this lawsuit?" There's all these things that we've been doing. If this, and a little bit, I'm worried that once the A's move to Sacramento next year, that, like, sort of nobody will be fighting anymore. No one will care. People will say it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's the fight, in my mind, isn't over until either they're putting shovels in the ground in Las Vegas or John Fisher's forced to sell. And moving temporarily to a stadium in Sacramento is not either of those two things.